What if every version of your life already exists? Not just the one you're living now, but the one where you took that risk, the one where you said no, the one where you left, stayed, built, broke, changed everything. What if those timelines aren't imaginary, but real? Modern physics doesn't deny it. In fact, some interpretations embrace it. The multiverse hypothesis suggests that every decision, every quantum event, splits reality into a branching set of parallel timelines, countless yous, living countless variations, in parallel, beside you, now. It sounds like science fiction, but it's a logical outcome of quantum theory, and it leads to one haunting question. If infinite versions of you exist, what keeps you anchored in this one? Is it chance, fate, or something else entirely? What if the thing that locks you into one timeline is your mind? To understand quantum jumping, we first need to understand the framework it rests upon, the multiverse. According to the many worlds interpretation of quantum mechanics, every time a quantum event occurs with multiple possible outcomes, the universe splits. In one reality, the electron moves left. In another, it moves right. This isn't speculation. It's a response to a genuine mystery in physics. Why do subatomic particles behave unpredictably until observed? The famous double-slit experiment revealed something strange. A particle doesn't decide on a state until it's being watched. Until then, it exists in a superposition, multiple states at once. But what if all those states actually manifest, just in different timelines? It means every choice you don't make is still made, somewhere. Every life you didn't live is still unfolding, in parallel. You, sitting here now, are just one expression, a strand, in a web of infinite potential. Quantum jumping, then, is not the act of traveling across space. It's the act of tuning into a different thread of reality, a thread where your life has taken a different path, not metaphorically, but consciously, deliberately. The question is no longer, do other versions of me exist? But rather, can I choose which version I become? And if yes, how? In classical science, consciousness was an afterthought, a byproduct of biology. The universe, according to Newtonian physics, ran on impersonal laws, cold, predictable, detached. But quantum physics disrupted that idea. The more we studied particles, the more they seemed to respond to the one thing science didn't want to account for, the observer. In the quantum realm, particles exist in multiple states at once, until observed. When we look, they collapse. They choose a path. Why? No one knows. But the implication is unavoidable. The act of observation doesn't just reveal reality, it affects it. And when the observer is a conscious mind, with intention, belief, and expectation, the lines blur between what is seen and what is shaped. You are not a passive witness. You are a participant in the unfolding of events. Your perception is not a window. It is a filter, a tuner, a lens through which waves become form. This brings us to a radical idea. If you can observe a version of your life clearly, consistently, with full sensory engagement, could that act alone begin to pull that timeline into focus? Could your mind be the needle and the timeline you focus on be the frequency? If so, then quantum jumping isn't just theoretical, it's practical, and it's already happening all the time. The difference between drifting through timelines and choosing one is awareness. Most people think of quantum jumping like teleportation, a clean shift from this life to a better one, like switching train tracks. But it doesn't work that way, because timelines are not places, they're expressions of you. You don't jump into a new life, you jump into a new version of yourself that already lives that life, and that difference changes everything. You can't access the timeline of abundance while carrying the beliefs of scarcity. You can't align with the version of you who is courageous while thinking like someone who's afraid. Each timeline is sustained by frequency, and frequency is not wishful thinking, it's identity. You are not the same person in every timeline. You have different habits, different emotional set points, different patterns of attention. The jump, therefore, is not just external, it's internal. Quantum jumping is not about changing reality first. It's about becoming the version of you who is already living in that reality. And when you make that internal shift, consistently, deliberately, external circumstances begin to reorganize. It's not magic, it's resonance. When you change your structure, you change what you pull in. And when you do it fully, you no longer chase a new life. You inhabit it. If timelines are real and your identity anchors your position within them, then the tool to shift timelines must be internal. That tool is not visualization, not in the way it's often sold. This is not about fantasy. It's about alignment. To shift timelines, you must create a sensory complete version of the reality you intend to move into. Not just see it, feel it, hear how it sounds, smell the room. Notice how you stand, how you speak, what you believe when you're already there. Because the subconscious doesn't respond to goals. It responds to repetition, detail, sensory saturation. When you fully embody the experience of a new timeline, the brain begins to accept it as familiar, safe, expected. And that's when reality, slowly, subtly, starts to follow. This isn't manifestation. This is entrainment. Your thoughts shape perception. Perception shapes behavior. Behavior reshapes environment. Environment confirms belief, and the loop closes. Quantum jumping is not a leap. It's a shift. Subtle, cumulative, real. If you've ever felt you don't belong in your current life, you're not broken. You're just tuned to a frequency that no longer matches your future. If this idea lands somewhere deep in you, say it out loud. Comment your frequency. Because naming a timeline is the first step in stepping into it. You don't wake up in a different timeline with a flash of light. There's no cinematic ripple, no thunder in the sky. But there are signs. Precise, subtle, unmistakable, if you know what to look for. First, emotional dissonance. You notice that things which used to bother you no longer do. Triggers lose their grip. Old fears feel out of place, as if they belong to someone else. You haven't fought them. They've simply become irrelevant. Second, micro coincidences. You think of someone, they message, you imagine a scene. It plays out the next day. Numbers repeat, time bends. It's not magic, it's signal recognition. Your field has shifted and the simulation is recalibrating. Third, disconnection from old identities. You lose interest in stories that once defined you. Memories feel flat. Old habits feel foreign. It's not depression, it's detachment from a version of you that no longer fits the frequency you're tuned to. And finally, new opportunities arise, not because you chase them, but because you match them. Quantum jumping doesn't force the world to change. It changes you. So the world you walk into has no choice but to meet your new resonance. And if you've experienced any of this, you may have already jumped. If this feels familiar, comment below. I've seen the shift. Because sometimes the best proof isn't in theory, but in what you feel between thoughts. If infinite timelines exist, why do most people stay locked in just one? The answer isn't cosmic, it's cognitive. Because jumping timelines doesn't just require imagination, it requires disloyalty to your past. And the mind is built to protect consistency. It values what's familiar, not what's optimal. Your thoughts build routines. Your routines build identity. And your identity becomes gravity, pulling you into the same patterns, same reactions, same outcomes. The longer you reinforce a version of yourself, the more real that version becomes, regardless of whether you like it. This is why even after a moment of insight, most people revert. They return to the old thought, the old belief, the old self, not because it's true, but because it's known. To jump timelines, you must first betray the comfort of your past. You must allow yourself to feel unfamiliar, to act without a script, to believe without evidence, to move without certainty, and most won't. Not because they lack power, but because they mistake repetition for truth. The old timeline whispers, "This is who you are," and the mind obeys. But when you begin to question, when you treat identity as fluid, not fixed, you loosen the tether, you become unstuck. And from that space, choice returns. If you felt stuck lately, you're not broken. You're at the edge of your old timeline. Now all that's left is to step. Say it below if you're ready, not for fantasy, but for freedom. Once you release the weight of your old timeline, you don't jump by force, you shift by field, because reality responds to vibration, not words. And your vibration is not your mood. It's the total sum of your internal state, your thoughts, your beliefs, your nervous system, your decisions. Every day, you broadcast a signature. That signal pulls in experiences, not because the universe rewards or punishes, but because resonance is law. So the work is not to chase a new timeline, but to stabilize the field of the one you choose. Here's how. First, clarity. What does that version of you believe? Not just about success, but about safety, love, worth, time. If your current beliefs contradict that frequency, you must recalibrate. Second, language. Your words are not description, they are code. Speak as if you've already arrived, and your subconscious will begin writing behaviors to match. Third, attention. Where your focus goes, energy flows. Stop feeding what you're leaving. Withdraw from timelines you don't want to reinforce. Fourth, embodiment. Don't just visualize, move like them, dress like them, breathe like them, live like them, even when it feels artificial, especially then, because repetition turns unfamiliar into normal, and normal becomes gravitational. When your nervous system finally accepts the new frequency as safe, you've already jumped, and the world will begin to respond. If this hits home, comment. I stabilize my field, because jumping is an event, but holding the new timeline, that's mastery. Quantum jumping is not a game. It's not about escaping, and it's not about pretending. It's a reconfiguration of self, which means it surfaces everything that's incompatible with the new timeline. Here's what most people get wrong. They visualize a future, but emotionally stay tied to the past. They rehearse abundance, but expect rejection. They speak empowerment, but carry unhealed fear. And the field doesn't respond to surface. It responds to structure. Jumping is not a hack. It's an undoing. You must shed layers of identity that were built to survive an older version of you. A version who may not have believed, trusted, or even wanted what you want now. And that shedding can feel like grief. You'll lose people, not by conflict, by dissonance. You'll lose preferences. Things that once thrilled you will feel flat. It's not depression, it's realignment. You'll doubt yourself, because the new timeline isn't proven yet. It requires faith, not the blind kind, the earned kind, from watching your nervous system tremble and still choosing forward. And here's the biggest trap: spiritual bypass. You tell yourself, I've jumped, but your body says otherwise. You force affirmations, fake calm, avoid shadow, and in doing so, you build a new cage, just better decorated. Real jumping is not about feeling good. It's about becoming clear. And clarity is not always comfortable, but it is always worth it. If this pulled something honest from you, write it. Let your old timeline hear you leave. Just because you've jumped doesn't mean you'll stay. The shift is real, but so is gravity. Old timelines don't disappear. They linger, waiting for your return. Not out of malice, but out of pattern. You start strong, aligned, clear. Then something small happens. A setback, a delay, a trigger from the past, and the mind whispers, see, nothing's changed. It's not the event that pulls you back. It's the agreement you make in that moment to believe in the old version again. You begin to narrate like them, react like them, feel like them. And just like that, you're home. But not your current home, your familiar one, the one you outgrew, the one you left. This doesn't mean you failed. It means the shift isn't complete, because quantum jumping is not one decision. It's hundreds, daily, silent, repeated. You don't jump once, you re-choose every day until the new frequency becomes default, until your nervous system no longer flinches, until your cells stop looking over their shoulder, until your thoughts stabilize around the version you're becoming. And here's the truth. You don't hold a new timeline. You become too aligned for the old one to contain you. If you've slipped lately, don't panic. Don't restart. Just return. Comment, I return, if this part speaks to you, because the jump wasn't a mistake, and the pullback is just a test of anchor. There's a point in every jump when understanding isn't enough. You've read, you've visualized, you've felt the shift begin, but without action, it remains potential, because every timeline has its own architecture, and you build it with your choices, not just big dramatic ones, the small ones, the hidden ones, the ones no one sees. Here's how the shift becomes stable. First, decision. Not vague desire, not I hope. A conscious choice to embody a new identity, even before evidence exists. Second, structural alignment. You change your inputs, what you consume, who you engage, how you spend your time. The version of you in a higher timeline doesn't just think differently, they live differently. Third, momentum. You don't need massive change overnight. You need consistency. One aligned action, repeated, becomes resonance. Fourth, feedback recognition. Pay attention. Synchronicities, tension, unexpected clarity. These are confirmations. Not that the jump is done, but that you're in motion. And finally, refusal to regress. You will be tested. People from the old timeline will return. Patterns will resurface. Not because you failed, but because your field is reordering. The only requirement now is refusal to narrate from the old version again. The body will shake. The mind will resist. Let it, and keep going. The jump doesn't happen when it feels safe. It happens when you act in alignment despite the unknown. If you're ready for this final step, the quiet daily embodiment of your new timeline, say it below. Not to me, to the version of you already living it. They're waiting. So, what happens when the jump is complete? Not overnight, not with fireworks, but quietly, precisely, irreversibly. You wake up one morning and realize you no longer recognize the voice that used to narrate your life. The inner critic is silent. The guilt is faint. The fear no longer runs the script. You don't feel high. You feel clear. You don't feel like you've arrived. You feel like you've returned to something ancient, accurate, inevitable. The people around you respond differently. Some drift away without reason. Others arrive, speaking a language you never knew you'd understand. Your choices change, not out of discipline, out of alignment. You don't tolerate what you used to explain. You don't chase what you used to crave. You don't fight what you used to fear, because you've become the version of you who doesn't need to. In the old timeline, it doesn't fight you. It forgets you, like a shell discarded by something that has outgrown the sea. You don't escape this life. You evolve out of it. And the people who knew you before may never understand the version you've become. That's okay. You didn't jump timelines to be understood. You jumped to be real. If you've made it here to this final part, you already know. Quantum jumping isn't about going somewhere else. It's about becoming someone who never had to, because the timeline you were seeking was always waiting on the other side of your permission. And now, it's yours. Welcome.